Hello and welcome to today's long range leap video for Tuesday, March 7th, 2023. I'm Climate Data Report. Taking a look here first off at the WPC 1 through 7 day QPF outlook, which is basically precipitation. And as you can see here, we have multiple areas of active weather, with the first being out here on the west coast, where upwards of 10 inches of precipitation is possible in the mountains of California, with anywhere from 4 to 10 inches of precipitation along the coastal areas. And unfortunately, not all this in the higher elevations is going to be in the form of snow this time. The very high levels, yes, you could see multiple feet of snow, but in the mid to lower elevation range, this is a rain event, and it's multiple events, and it'll be multiple rain events, which could result in potential for flooding. As we know, there is a ton of snow on the ground in many different levels of the elevation. Taking a look here in the Midwest, here's our short to mid-range system that provides the precipitation here. There also could be another system next week, and there are two systems that are going to provide loads of precipitation in the south, which anywhere from 2 to 4 inches of precipitation is being advertised here across a portion of Arkansas, Alabama, and Mississippi, even isolated amounts up to 3 to 4 inches in Oklahoma. Then you see an area of active weather expected over the next 7 days here in the northeastern states and mid-Atlantic region. That's because there are the potential for 2 coastal storms. Taking a look at the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook. Below average temperatures expected in the east, something we have not seen much of this winter, and it looks like the maximum of that is going to be right over North Carolina and Virginia. The Four Corners region is going to experience above average temperatures, and the western coast and the North Plains slightly below average temperatures. In the 8 to 14 day range, what we are looking at is generally below average temperatures in the west coast and below average temperatures in the eastern coast, but down in Texas there is a small area of above average temperatures. Now, taking a look at the GFS model for the next several days, we'll look into next week. And taking a look here, you can see our system comes across the Midwest, and this is the system that's going to potentially produce the first coastal system in the mid-Atlantic region. There's also another system coming onshore here across California. And look at this. You can see here, there is a lot of rain showing up here. Oregon, California border right there, there is some snow, but for the majority, unless you're at the highest levels of elevation in California, this is a rain event, which is extremely concerning because there is a ton of snow packed on the ground. And whether or not all the snow is going to absorb this, how that's going to play out, that remains to be seen. But there's potential here. This could be a flooding event of significance, especially if there's another system that comes behind us. Back to the system in the east. Yesterday I was telling you it's more likely this system is going to go out to sea. I would still put a good bet on that, but it is possible the secondary low with this system gets going a little bit faster. And if that were to happen, there would be a little bit of a rain-snow mix from northeast of Baltimore up through Philadelphia, New York City, and portions of southern New England, which is something we'll have to watch. If you look at the GFS as it continues on here, notice this is significantly southeast of yesterday's run. Take a look at the last 12 runs of the GFS. I'll let this loop a couple times. It originally, 12 runs ago, had the low for Friday. This is the Friday time frame that we're looking at here. It originally had the low being over Minnesota and portions of Wisconsin. And each run, it has trended faster and more southeast, and it's continuing to trend southeast. And with the most recent run being the 18Z run, it is pretty far southeast. Here is the GEFS. As you can see here, the initial primary low gets going over Illinois. This is Friday morning. By Friday afternoon and evening, it's over the Ohio Valley. Coming into Friday night, it starts to transfer to a secondary low off the Delmarva and the New Jersey coast. How far northwest that low forms and how fast it gets going is crucial to what precipitation will fall here from, say, Philadelphia, northeast of Baltimore, we'll call it, on up into portions of southern New England. Let's take a look at the GEFS precipitation here. As you can see here, This was the 12Z run. Here's the 6Z run. Look what happened on the 12Z run. It got the system going a little bit faster. And where you see these lighter shades of blue, that is over 3/4 of an inch of precipitation. And because that gets going faster, you're dealing with slightly heavier precipitation. So you could see the rain mix in with snow here from, say, Philadelphia on up into New York City, definitely, Connecticut, Rhode Island, even Boston. But Boston, you're going to be on the outer skirts of this, as the way I see it as of right now. And if you get some heavier precipitation going, because the atmosphere will be so cold, you could look at a quick 1 to 3 inches of snow as this system gets going before it skirts out to sea. And continuing back with the GFS, you can see this system really bombs out once it moves out to sea. It gets into the low 980s, maybe even low 970s. And then here comes that second system that we're watching. But watch what the GFS does here. The GFS takes that second system way out to sea. This is what's called the southern stream energy. Here's your northern stream energy right here. They don't really link up in phase at all. If I switch over here to the Canadian model, here we are Friday morning, very early. Here's the system coming on with the West Coast. That's guaranteed. That's set in stone. California on up through the West Coast, you are looking at a very high precipitation event, 3 to 6 inches of rain possible, with the high elevation seeing 2 to 4 feet of snow in the very high elevations, though. Lower levels, as we said, it's a rain event. Here's our system in the east, and watch what happens here. It continues east. The Canadian does transfer, and it changes it over to snow in eastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and New York City, but watch. It just slips away and goes right out to sea, and it really bombs out, down to 979. But behind us, here's our second system for Monday afternoon into Tuesday. As you can see, you're getting some active weather here across portions of the Tennessee Valley, maybe some thunderstorms and rain. And then this tries to form a low off the Carolina coast, then off the Delmarva, but it doesn't really get going. And it holds back energy across the Great Lakes. Should that get going faster, which the European model suggested last night, you would be looking at a stronger storm with colder air and the potential for snow from Philadelphia on up into New England. As is, the Canadian does get a decent snowstorm going for Maine and portions of Vermont, with a moderate 4 to 8 inches of snow. Taking a look at the European model for this, and we are going to start this European model run from the beginning. First off, here's the West Coast system. Here's the system that we are watching for Friday night. And as you can see, the European here does get a mix going from northeast of Baltimore on up into portions of New York, but it does not show anything for Boston area. And the European quickly slides this out to sea with a much stronger system, 976 millibar low. And here comes the second system. It starts off as a mix for much of Pennsylvania. The low is down here around the Carolinas, and watch what happens. The low is rather slow to move, and it changes over to all rain for Philadelphia, even New York City. This is rain. But then the low really bombs as it gets to Long Island, and look what happens in northern New England. Kaboom! You're talking high snowfall amounts. I mean, upstate New York and Vermont, if the European's correct, that's 1 to 2 feet of snow. So we'll have to keep watching this system, because if it gets going faster, say it starts bombing here off the Delmarva, well, suddenly you're looking at a snowstorm from Philadelphia on northward. But hey, one system at a time, and take a look out here on the West Coast. Yes, that's another weather maker for the West Coast, and the European is showing very heavy rainfall. And if we take this out to the end of the European, now we're looking at late next week. Yeah, yet another system on the West Coast, which would be providing heavy rainfall. And like I said, with multiple systems clashing into this snowpack that's in the mountain region, and with the fact that the snow elevation level is going to be so high up, you're talking a lot of precipitation on top of this snowpack. There's a potential for a major flooding event in California, mudslides maybe in some places. And look at this, another system coming into the Ohio Valley, coming across the Midwest, and hey, could that transfer to a coastal system in the east? We'll have to see. Check back again tomorrow. We'll have an update on all these systems. Thanks for watching, and if you like the content that I do on my channel, if you find it informative and keeps you prepared, give me a like and then hit subscribe down below, and you'll know when I do my future videos. The next video on the channel will be tomorrow morning's short range forecast. Until then, have a great night, everyone.